Hey there, we're in the next part and I'm still boiling like a banana peel, as if though that boils. We had to find an analogy. We use whatever we have at the top of our minds. Amen. Righto. So in the previous part I was speaking about how the United States is anomalous, but how most people are still kind of rational and sober across the world in woke ideology. We are still very much old school in the way that we think about things. Many of us, however, we are slowly being infiltrated. However, we are not so tarnished and far gone to a scale where the Lord would need to come and snatch the church away. I wanted then to speak about what is this? Oh goodness, no! Why is this fleeing from my mind? I was speaking about how the woke agenda is generally not it's not generally accepted across the world. It's like a U.S. issue, and it could prosper to influence the rest of the planet because it is the world superpower. But they're fast losing their status. They're losing their street cred and their clout in the United States, and their dollar is going to end up not being the reserve currency because it's being currented even by many other countries in the world. So I'm trying to get people to start to look at things from not so much from the vantage point or the lens of the United States, but from the lens of their own countries, to see if at all they are so far gone that God would come and collect everybody and take them home. Do you understand? That belongs to him, and then start to judge the world. Alrighty. What is the other agenda? Come on, why would I lose my chain of thought when I was just like buxom in my brain just before even starting this part? Another area of concern across the world that people are claiming the Lord is going to come and fetch us all because it's ransacking all societies. Yes, thank you very much, Bill Gates and his food. GMO food, this genetically modified stuff that might cause people to grow other ears. Know and understand that apparently, allegedly, this GMO food, because it's genetically modified, if somebody consumes it, it's got power to transform genes inside a human being, right? And cause mutations and all different kinds of funny, weird stuff. However, it's been experimented on sufficiently, and because it's been experimented on sufficiently, they anticipate that it's safe for everybody. Well, there was this whole conference held in Namibia, where Namibian premiers or councillors of government or whatever were coming up against, with all different kinds of steam, power and oomph, genetically modified food. There is this couple in the United States. The chickie is from, I believe, Kenya. And the man, it's Benjamin and Akiri, thank you. The man is from the United States of America. They, I believe, are in, is it Ohio? I stand corrected. Don't even bother to remember where they currently stay. They fell in love having met on a dating app. I think they're Christian. I absolutely love their channel. Every so often I watch their content. It's wholesome stuff. Righto. These two human individuals met, like I said, on the internet, and when Akiri was telling a story about her country, she spoke about how where she's, I believe I mentioned that she's Kenyan, right? That in the United States, everything that is GMO, there's just so much GMO stuff all over the show. All over the show, it's just GMO. And non-GMO stuff is labeled non-GMO, and it's more expensive. And she spoke about how at home in Kenya, like, she goes to buy fruit and vegetables at the market, and all of it is non-GMO, and it is all assumed to be non-GMO. It's been organically grown. And so for her to spend so much more money on non-genetically modified food is ridiculous. It's an experience for her that she imagines is just ridiculous, because at home, fruit is cheap and fruit is all non-GMO. But in the United States, she's spending more money for something that comes naturally, very organically in her country as the general status quo. That's Kenya. Namibia went on right ahead to boycott Bill Gates' GMO. They were 5 seconds away from throwing him out of the room, throwing their non-GMO vegetables at him on some eat that and try and taste how good it still is. Ain't no need to be genetically modifying anything. And there were all different kinds of scientists at this parliament explaining the crop and how not everything is gangster and how pesticides are the bane of our existence, and so you should take GMO foods because it's killing off pesticides. And all I could think about was, how did people live through old age back before any of these like methods in the laboratory wreaked havoc in everybody's life? They ate food that had been ransacked in their fields by worms and all different kinds of bugs in the soil, and they still lived. So what is the whole pretense that we need to be protected using pesticides or using non-GMO food or GMO alternatives in order to like take the bugs out of our fruit to make sure that animals don't like them but human beings can take them in their stride? There are lies, long story short, being proliferated in the human race by the American conglomerate, by Bill Gates. and co. The Russell Brands is like always covering the food crisis issue with the GM, the technologization. He calls it a technologization of food, right? And he's always interviewing people from all other countries, but for the United States of America. There's a woman from India that he's always bringing in to like speak, a doctor, a scientist, that is always speaking about the bizarre technologization of food and how GMO is this and that, and how they're also trying to force farmers across the world to sell their lands that, like, I don't know, it might be owned by 1 or 2, 3, 5 global elites and what have you, right? So basically the majority of the planet is not quite on board. There are whole activists of a very intelligent nature that are antagonizing the colonization of food. We shall call it that. Yeah, the colonization of food across the planet. It is a project or a strategy that has been embarked on by the global elites, spearheaded largely by Mr. Gates. Do you understand? However, there are nations and their governments who are actively pushing back. I literally was listening to one argument in a parliament of sorts not in Nigeria, sorry, but in Namibia. In Namibia, I was listening to this argument, and they were busy rapping about how keep your GMO until it has been thoroughly researched enough for us to feed it down the throats of our Namibians, until such time that you can give us proof that it's okay, and it's not going to cause us to grow a third tail in 2080. We're good. We'll just keep on growing our food organically, and they are protecting farmers, helping them keep their lands, even though there is like a whole cooing force coming from the west, trying to take lands even all the way in Namibia. So there are people who are pushing back against the land seizing strategy of the global elites. And these people are in countries that are not yet so developed that they will be subjugated to the tyranny of bodies like the World Economic Forum and the, what do you call this, okay, like Bill Gates, alongside the United Nations, etc. They can't be lorded over them because they don't yet have the level of technology in the West that would be required to surveil those who are naysayers or those who are rebellious. So the whole trying to take over the land in the Netherlands, 30% of farmland because of nitrogen emissions or whatever. Like last time I checked, carbon was the only issue. Now apparently it's nitrogen too. That is happening in the Netherlands. Why? Because it is in, I guess, Western society. It is in Europe over there, and they have already been super technologized, and so it is easier for society, for them to suddenly all of a sudden get cooed by a globalistic agenda that is trying to take away their freedoms. But in Africa, where there isn't even power, electricity, in India, where infrastructure is also kind of choking up at the seams, people are rioting for, like, successfully, where it is that, like, literally Bill Gates also tried to take away a whole bunch of land from the Indians. And there are wars there. There are people who are fighting back, and they are literally just hiding information from tech giants that are also trying to become agriculture giants, who wants to take away their farmland and so colonize food and monopolize it and so use it to as a weapon against the global citizenship for whatever reason under heaven. The world at large is pushing back, even though not in the forefront sufficiently enough for them to be covered by news media, because they are generally or largely yet to be fully technologized enough for them to be successfully surveilled. It's not quite, they are trying to Chinese social credit system the world, but they are suffering because of, again, in Africa, infrastructure. Our infrastructure is literally blocking Bill Gates' agenda. Our infrastructural failures are a Romans 8:28 in the sense that it's working out for the good of the people on the ground, in the sense that it is making it very slow and stubborn and stealthy and kind of like lethargic and boring and sedentary to pursue, because it's taking so long, because technology is an enabler of tyrants. Do you understand? And Africa is choking at the seams because even though we might have the technological infrastructure, every so often it's got like issues with power cuts that linger for way too long. So if at all Bill Gates is struggling to indeed colonize the food industry, monopolize living daylights out of it, make like Jan van Riebeek when he's arriving there in, is it Cape Town or Durban or whatever, okay? Since under heaven, Bill Gates is a suffering and struggling Jan van Riebeek, it means that there is a restrainer that is preventing a global takeover by megalomaniacs who are similar to Nimrod at the Tower of Babel. And so therefore, there is likely hope for another 50 years on the earth. Next part.